Hello, beautiful soul family. Welcome to Monday Mastery, where we take a quick pulse on the current energies, review this past week, and bring in some guidance in how to move forward. As always, this is a timeless message, although I will take just a couple of minutes to review what we've experienced this past week, maybe from a solar weather or Schumann resonance perspective, or even from an astrology perspective every now and then. But primarily, this is about receiving guidance in how to move through the next week. So it was very, very interesting energy. I feel like I say that every week. Every week is interesting. But this past week was particularly interesting because we did not have very much solar weather, if at all, from a solar flare perspective. We did start the week with a geomagnetic storm that was a result from the X-class solar flare that we had the Saturday prior to last Monday. So a week ago Saturday, we had a very large 4.54 X-class solar flare. It was a tongue twister for me last week. But we did experience a KP8 on Monday, a KP6 on Tuesday, and a KP5 on Wednesday as far as the peaks. It did ebb and flow throughout those days, but that's pretty sustained energy, which is very interesting. We have seen some correlation around geomagnetic weather or solar weather relative to astrology, which is interesting because we did have the full moon eclipse on Tuesday last week as well. So, extremely interesting from the sense that the energy was intense. It was very amplifying and full of energy throughout the early part of the week. And then it moved into kind of strange energy and even challenging energy over the last 48 hours or so. So very fascinating how this has been sort of a sustained experience throughout the week. And I smile saying that, but because it's really not that surprising considering we are in eclipse season, and eclipse season is always two different eclipses that sort of bookend each other. Sometimes we can go up to three. It's been a couple of years since we've done that. But right now we're in between two. All right. So we had one this past Tuesday, and then we will have one coming on October 2nd. Let's see, probably right around Wednesday, Thursday, I started getting people contacting me and asking, is there a lot of solar weather going on? What's up with these energies? And there was not a lot of solar weather, but there was still a similar sense of fatigue and exhaustion and things to work through, purging, things coming up, the shadows being brought to light. So very reminiscent of what we would typically see, and yet not correlated, which I find very interesting. A few Schumann resonance throughout the week, spikes as well, but nothing to call home about. Again, we are in a seasonal lightning territory in the realms of where these devices are located. So any spikes that we do see seem to correlate to local storms. We also had the equinox on the 22nd, which I believe was yesterday. So happy fall, y'all, for those of us who are above the equator, and happy spring to those of us below. I do suspect that this is also playing into the intensity that we're experiencing, and trust that we will see sort of a decline on the other side of that October 2nd eclipse. It was very interesting early throughout the week. As typical for a full moon, there was a lot of energy, but I had people saying it felt like this full moon lasted for days and days and days. The energetic increase, the inability to sleep, the brightness, the fullness of the moon did seem sustained for a longer period of time. It was a super moon, so that's again indicative of what we experienced. A lot of motivation and drive, a lot of energy to get up and go and to do things, to wake up early, to get things done, which is really nice and helpful. And yet at the same time, we can go so many days without sleep or drive for so many days to accomplish things that there's sort of a lull or a recovery period that is needed after that. And so I believe that's somewhat of what we're experiencing today. We do need that time to catch up and to rest and to revisit and recoup and revitalize some of those rewords, just looking back over what we have accomplished, not this past week solely, but also for the last cycle, right? From full moon to full moon, what have you accomplished? What have you moved through? It's important to take these moments to take stock and sort of look back at what we have moved through, what we have accomplished, what we have shifted internally and externally in our lives. That many times when you can go from an extreme high peak of energy to sort of a lull, which it seems that we are in today, we sort of lose sight of the things that were accomplished, or we maybe have these old negative thought paths or thought habits, neural pathways that cause us to say, oh, see, it never works out for me, or oh, see, it always turns out that I'm still stuck. You really want to look at those behaviors and consciously create new neural pathways that support the beliefs and the understanding that life is always working for you. Things are in perfect divine order, all is well. And just because there's a little lull in the energy does not mean that we're still stuck. It does not mean that we have not accomplished anything. So that taking that time to look back over the last period, the last cycle, and really take stock, take note, and bring to our conscious awareness what we have moved through can be very helpful to combat that energy. Honor the cycles, and remember that, that the light of the full moon, the amplification of the energy is awesome and amazing and fun. And yet the dark new moon is also necessary, and that we would not be able to sustain that energy if we didn't have the ebbs and flows of healing and recuperation that are needed. We can't always be on. And it's important to remember to slow down. Sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. And we are still accomplishing things in the slowdown. I will raise my hand as a healing or recovering high achiever, used to be perfectionist. I loved being on the go and always on and always doing things. And anytime I would hit that wall of needing to rest and recuperate, it would seem like things are falling apart or I'm still stuck. And so being conscious of that tendency is really important, and remembering to honor the cycles. And as much as we love the spring of the new flowers coming through the ground and bursting forth with life, we also love the fall of the leaves and the hibernation of our beautiful nature, the trees and whatnot. I'm at a loss for words today, not as articulate as normal, so bear with me. I'm feeling the lull in the energy too. So again, taking stock of where we're at, where we've come, what we've moved through can help us appreciate the cycles and embrace the slowdown, embrace the healing. In these moments, it's also helpful to discern when we need to take action versus when we need to let go of the reins and let the divine, let source take control. Recognizing that if you have been utilizing the peak in energy and getting things done and accomplishing things and moving forward as best you have been guided to, then you can trust in these moments that it is not time for action. And it can be challenging when we have gone through a period of healing. If you follow me and I'm very big into trauma healing and understanding what's within us so that we can go in and pull the root weeds of what causes toxic cycles in our lives. When we have done that work, you may have a period of a sustained period of lull in energy where we need to rest, and coming out on the other end of that may require some self-discipline, some getting ourselves up off of the couch and saying, you know what, I'm being called to do this thing, I need to take action. And again, this is where the discernment comes in, where we have to understand, is it time to take action or is it time to let the divine lead? And only you know what is right for you. Only you have access to your emotional guidance system, your internal GPS, and the sensations in your body that say yes or no, left or right. And so sharpening your discernment tool and healing your relationship with yourself and the divine in your body so that you can feel into the resonance of truth in your body is going to be critically important in times like these, to know if I have been resting and healing in a lull energy for a sustained period of time, then it may be time for something new and different. Again, the balance of discipline versus letting the divine drive requires your discernment and your connection to self, a clear connection with self that is not tainted by unhealed wounds and past traumas. Right. So we have to go within more often, or in these moments. I don't say more often, it's a balance of both in and out, but in these moments where we've gone through the peak in energy and now we're in a lull in energy, and then there's some things that are coming up that feel a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker, a little bit more difficult to articulate or put our finger on, that's when we need to go within, right? We've been out through the course of this moon, doing things and taking action. And now it's time to come within and say, okay, what's coming up? And from an astrological standpoint, it really helps to understand that this previous eclipse last Tuesday was conjunct Neptune, which was great when the light of the moon and the sun were illuminating the big dreams and desires and possibly even a little bit of rose-colored glasses. But now that the sun is moving on and the moon is moving on, it's like sticky energy. It's like it's pulling on the dream and yet pulling it into more of a dark expression. And I don't mean dark from a negative standpoint, but rather into the shadows where we have to do more discernment and more feeling into and sensing of what's coming up and what's asking to be addressed. We have a kite pattern between Pluto, Uranus, and the sun, which can be indicative of a dark night of the soul plus shadow work, which one is challenging enough, let alone the two of them together. And of course, we know that collectively as society, we're in a bit of a dark night of the soul as well. So you may feel this on a personal level, as well as that facilitating the bridge into the collective level as well. All right, so it can be unclear on how to navigate this, and the key is bringing things to conscious awareness, utilizing the steps that I teach on my channel. That I'm sure there's others out there that have different steps that may or may not work for you. Better or worse than, doesn't really matter, but really find your system for getting at what's coming up for you. And if we were to walk through the trauma spotting steps, that is to really feel into the body, to get intimate with what sensation is calling your attention most as you start to set the frame or start to ask the questions around what is coming up, what am I experiencing, what is being called for here, and get intimately familiar with that sensation in the body from a place of presence and just conscious awareness, being aware of what is coming forward and listening to that sensation as if it were a friend or a beautiful gift of a messenger that's come to you to offer some guidance around what you are missing, what you need, what we need to integrate, what beliefs you're believing that are misaligned and not true that are causing your hardship, and or maybe some action that might be appropriate as we get through the new moon. So this can cause sort of a questioning in how do I act? How do I behave? What is my new role? Sort of redefining how we move forward. And it's important to know as the moon moves into the dark phase of the new moon, we're still in that sensing and getting to know and listening stage. And as the light of the moon returns on the other side of the eclipse, likely October 3rd through 5th, that's where we're going to start to see some clarity. Many times I've noticed that it's not until the light of the moon returns that we start to see with more clear vision what it is that we're struggling with and how we need to move forward. We're also moving into more of the south node energy. So what we just experienced with this previous eclipse is north node, which is giving and bringing the rewards for your efforts. And now we're moving into the south node energy, which is more of the, so if you think of the two nodes as the tail and the head of the dragon, which is how it's depicted in astrology, that the head is bringing in something and the tail is excreting something. So we're moving into that releasing energy, on top of it being a new moon. So in the darkness with the shadows, and hopefully, ideally, giving us guidance in how to move through that dark night of the soul. Right. So we still have a little bit of that lingering delusion or rose-colored glasses, or maybe even confusion from the Neptune eclipse. So just handle everything with care, with love, with compassion over the next week or two. Bring your concerns to conscious awareness, and then wrap them with love. I have to give credit to rewilding Sabrina Lynn for that instruction. That is her beautiful masterpiece as far as bringing things to conscious awareness and then wrapping them in love. And I very much resonate with that in my own process of noticing that the energies have shifted from something beautiful and amazing, riding on cloud nine this past week, and then all of a sudden into the shadows over the last 48 hours. And when something like that happens, I'm really consciously aware of the old negative thought habits that want to say that there's a problem or you've done something wrong. And again, wrap that with love. But bring through our focus and attention on the sensations and approaching with curiosity and listening what's coming up in the body, bringing it to conscious awareness and letting those voices within you at risk at sounding like we have a split personality disorder. We are made up of parts, and all these different parts within you will have an opinion, they will have a perspective, and maybe they're trying to share something with you. So we bring it to conscious awareness, and then we wrap it in love. Make sure that we're not stuffing, we are not suppressing, we are not clinging, we are not resisting, we are not judging. Only love. And just remember that there are only two kinds of thoughts, either thoughts of fear or thoughts of love. So if there's any question around, is this thought loving? It's likely coming from a place of fear. And there's a part within you that does not have its needs met or is not feeling seen and heard. And so again, bringing that to conscious awareness and being present with it is the first step, and then wrapping it with love, right? Remember that pain plus resistance equals suffering. So this process doesn't even have to be painful. It's not comfortable. It's not desirable. It's not the experience we might choose if we had an option, but it doesn't have to be, we don't have to suffer through the process. If we don't resist this process, we don't have to suffer, and we can move through it very quickly. And if you are in resistance to the process, you will extend it and make it last longer and create pain and suffering in the process. So embrace what is with love, bring it to conscious awareness, and wrap it with love. Thank you, Sabrina Lynn. Be open to who you are becoming. Many times, part of that clinging is clinging to what I think it should be, or who I thought I was, or the way I have described things. We so frequently get confused and think that what I see in front of me right now is evidence of the truth. It is evidence of reality. And if you're listening instead of watching, I'm using my air quotes here. What we see outside of us is an echo of the past. Everything I see in front of me is the past, not the future. It is not the evidence of reality or what is now, but rather the reality of what I was creating in recent past days, weeks, months, maybe even years, depending on how quickly you're able to move through things. So when we have these moments of going into sort of the shadows to bring something up for purging and to wrap it with love, we can bring it back to a place of it needs to integrate with who I am, or who I was, or where I was, or where I think I should be. And when we, again, that's a very rigid, resistant perspective. We want to open to who am I now in every moment, because who I was 5 minutes ago and who I was an hour ago and who I was yesterday and who I was a week ago is always shifting and changing. And if I have that resistant perspective of this is how it is, this is reality, this is who I am in resistance and causing suffering. So we have to open in every moment, every new moment. Who am I now? How does this shift and change who I am? And the beautiful part about creating a new life, or stepping into a new place in life, or creating the life of your dreams, is that you are constantly moving towards something, which means we're never fully stagnant. We're never fully stuck. We're never really ever just one thing all the time. And so it requires a posture, an energetic posture within your body to be willing to feel and to sense into who am I now? Who am I now? Who am I now? And doing that from a place of love without clinging. And I recognize that trying to describe that with words is difficult because it's an or it's a felt sense, right? So it's a nuanced feeling into the energetic alignment of the highest self, the highest path, and who we are becoming. Okay. I have found it very helpful in these moments where the energy kind of takes a dip. And like I said, two kinds of thoughts, fear or love, recognizing that there is only one power in the universe, and that is God. and divine universe, source, creator, however you want to say it. As you know, I say a rose by any other name still smells as sweet. The source creator of all that is really ultimately the only thing that exists. And so there's this dichotomy of good versus evil and right versus wrong. And at the end of the day, there's only love. And we want to remember that when these sneaky little insidious thoughts of problems or issues or conflict, resistance, the lower frequencies try to sneak in, we can call on the Christ energy. And I've been using it and really enjoying and finally finding highly effective the phrase, I bind my mind to the mind of Christ. Right? That my goal is to be Christ-like, to align with the Christ within me, knowing that the divine lives in my body, that the breath of life courses through me, that it is the source creator that animates my autonomic nervous system and wakes me up every day. It is that Christ energy within me that brings the peace that passes all understanding, that brings me into alignment with the purpose and the beautiful gift of the life that the divine created for me is only possible when I am in my Christed energy. So to say that I bind my mind to the mind of Christ, or only thoughts of the Holy Spirit are allowed within me, it makes a shift that I don't even have to apply effort, that there's this energetic support system that comes in where I become entwined with only the thoughts, the highest form of love, right? Only thoughts of love. So try that on for size, see how it works for you. Remembering that lower energies must always yield to higher energies, and thoughts of love, what could be higher, right? So as we bind our minds to the mind of Christ and we intertwine with the Holy Spirit and let the divine lead and let the highest energies of love be the most predominant energy within us, that is when we are no longer tampered with by anything lower, and those lower energies must yield. Okay. And then finally, yes, just notice anytime those lower thought forms want to come in, they're just thought habits. They're misalignments to truth. And we want to be careful with what energies or what thought forms we are dancing with. A thought can come and go. We know that many thoughts float above us all the time, and we are like giant Tesla towers, that we're drawing in these thoughts based on what we are resonating with or what frequency we are a match to. But we do have a choice. If something comes in, it's okay. It can move right on through. It doesn't mean that we've done anything wrong. It doesn't mean that, oh no, I'm in a lower thought form and I'm manifesting negative things. We can just see it and let it pass through without buying into it, without adopting it, without identifying with it. So we can say to that thought form, again, I bind my mind to the mind of Christ. We don't want to entangle with those thought forms. So really look at, is this a thought of fear or a thought of love? And that, I believe, is all I have for you today. If you have not yet checked out this weekend's past video, make sure you do so. It is all about embracing freedom, which is also moving through your money blocks and how to do that. So I'm happy to bring you the system that has worked for me in allowing flow to finally come into my life. It is available to you and everyone who is willing to believe that you are a child of the Creator, and therefore abundance is available to you in any moment. So make sure you check out that video. Otherwise, I will see you this next weekend. I love you, my friends. Namaste.